Possibly one of the most fascinating profiles that you can do in football is when you've got someone who has such a good profile, but not many teams where you know where they fit in, which is why Ryan Gravenberch or Gravenberch could be the man to solve a lot of Liverpool's issues. I don't want to say that he is a fix-all, but I do want to say that there are a lot of interesting elements and boxes that he ticks for Liverpool, and possibly even comparisons we can make with other players that I want to just explore in this video. So if you've not already hit subscribe, you don't have to hit it just yet. Hit it at the end of the video if you want to, but just go with me on this, just for a little while, and let me lay some foundations. The guy is 21. He's from the Netherlands. He's been through the Ajax Academy. This logo is so important to so much of what we are saying and seeing right now on these kind of profile channels and beyond that, right? This is a finishing school in European football. This is where pedigree comes from. And so the fact that he has such a good profile at this club, alongside other great players of that generation, so we're talking your Urian Timber types, we're talking your De Jong types, we're talking, I mean, there have been loads of other good players, but even in just in Dutch terms, you know, Gravenberch can profile similar to a Cody Gakpo in that sense, in terms of carrying the ball. There is a lot of really good Dutch talent out there right now that I think Liverpool are trying to tap into, because Pep Lingers and Klopp want a certain profile of player that in a way is great for the now for Liverpool, but is also good and future-proofing Liverpool's team, but is also adaptable enough to do that. And I'm going to go into why in this video. The guy's 21. He's 1.90 m tall, 6'2". If you're in UK terms, he's only between 30 and 40 million euros, which is, I think, that kind of perfect price point for Liverpool, where you can risk a little bit of cash on him, but also you know there's probably going to be a return on the other side, which is probably why Bayern got him in the first place. But he has super high potential. His ceiling is potentially world-class. And if you go back, I know now maybe people are saying, oh, well, you know, he didn't really come through at Bayern, so how good can he really be? He didn't do this, he didn't do that, so how good can he really be? The guy is in Bayern's squad. The guy has had minutes for Bayern. It's just that, like I said at the start of the video, what's fascinating is sometimes teams buy a player and they just don't end up playing him because they've got other tactical needs at that point. I think Gravenberch has kind of suffered from that. He's a right-footed central midfielder, probably more like an 8, less like a 6, maybe. I mean, he's not like an old 10 because he's a little bit too tall for that. But what he's great at bringing is balance. He's a connective tissue that I talk about a lot at Liverpool at the moment. He floats around that midfield a lot, but he's also got a very defined role within certain teams he plays in. And he brings balance. I think he brings a bit of relief. He's the kind of guy who can get a foul on the counter-attack. He's the kind of guy who can relieve pressure through really good feet in possession, although sometimes his feet get caught under him a little bit, although I think he can get over that in time as he grows. He's still only 21. And in terms of Liverpool's homegrown quota, he's not going to infringe on any of that because he's under 21, born after the cusp of where he needed to be to enter that term. So he's good in terms of entering Liverpool's squad. I think overall we're looking at a player here who a couple of seasons ago was being profiled by Real Madrid, Liverpool, Manchester United, Bayern Munich, and Ajax have kind of finished him off at one point. The other name that I think of is Gini Wijnaldum, a player that I don't want to say Liverpool have lacked, but I do want to say that Liverpool have moved on from and then never quite replaced that type of meaningful input in their team. So what I mean by that is, for a very long time, Gini Wijnaldum was a stalwart for this Liverpool side. And I don't think we've had a stalwart midfield now for a couple of seasons where you go, that is going to be Liverpool's midfield for the next 2 seasons. Looking at what they're rebuilding now, the future-proofing of Liverpool, the adaptability of someone like Gini Wijnaldum, he was probably skewed more attacking when he first came in at Liverpool. Suddenly, because he's not attacking, because he's not passing the eye test, a lot of people are going, well, what does he really do? And there's only a couple of people well above my intelligence level and everything else that are able to profile what Gini Wijnaldum did, right? There's like a Sam Maguire or someone like that, a proper profiler of players who goes, I know what this guy did. I know what Liverpool lacked when he left. And also that he had enough attacking nous up here and a reading of the game that gave him arguably the intelligence to not need to be a 6 or an 8 actually for Liverpool, and gave Liverpool this adaptability and high pressing that we probably lacked for a little while. But he wasn't the presser, and nor is Ryan Gravenberch. Of course, he's had a light time of late, should we say. This was his profile last season, 22-23. quite a few light touches, fairly spread out, but still concentrated in that kind of right, deeper midfield, more progressive midfield. Not anything particularly special. And in fact, this is him this season. Don't even need to look into this as a heat map. It's so light, it's because Bayern aren't really using him. And if you go to the under-21s this summer, even though people are saying he was demoted to the under-21s, he's had an 8.1 in there, a 7.5. He's had some really good performances, which arguably you should have if you're playing in the under-21s and you're a player of his profile. But you get my point here, like, he's a more progressed midfielder at this point. Why bring him in? If he profiles like a Szoboszlai, a McAllister, a Curtis Jones, what are you bringing him in for? Well, maybe there's another plan here for him. And arguably, because of this badge, we'll go back to it, and the finishing school that he's been through in the Eredivisie now for a couple of seasons, this is his first season, this is his second season, and this is his, this is his second season, and this is his third season. What you basically see is, look, he starts out here, relatively conservative in midfield in terms of touches, expands out closer to the touchline. Clearly, Ajax are trying to make him a little more of a, I mean, at this point he is one of their starting 11, but a little more of a, let's just get this guy in there. And finally, this is him just expanding out all the way across those areas. This is really defensive, although it could be a little bit deeper if you want to see a defensive midfielder, and it's also really attacking. I think what's worth remembering here is what we're talking about is we can talk about numbers, you can talk about shapes and all those kind of things. What is it that Liverpool are trying to achieve out on the field? And what is it that these players need to enable in other players? What can Gravenberch, what can Szoboszlai and McAllister enable in other players? He was very good at Ajax of getting the ball back and distributing it to the more creative players, the players immediately ahead of him, the Tadic types, those kind of players. What's interesting about that is, what are Liverpool trying to achieve? They want to have supremacy in the game. They need players who are very good at winning the ball back. They need players who are good at keeping the ball in those kind of situations, and then getting the balls out to a Diaz, Hakpo, Salah, even Szoboszlai, even McAllister. Or could they switch with those kind of guys and switch role in that? When we're looking at like his heat map and all those kind of things, that's because these teams have a lot more dominance. That's because these teams have a lot more progress and control of the game than you would probably think maybe, I guess like lower down the league sides would. That's what Liverpool are looking for right now. So it's what they look to achieve and what they enable in other teams and players as well. It's worth just remembering that. It's not just about is he covering all these other guys as a six? Is he sitting there sweeping up? If Liverpool don't want that and they want to try and control a game, even against strong sides, there is a really kind of, I think there's something that we're missing in the analysis if we're just looking at this is how many carries he has, this is how many tackles he has. It's the eye test, it's the overall what he contributes to the team. And I think it's worth just remembering that while we're analysing him. He's not box to box, but we'll talk about that in just a second. This is him in the Champions League. Really key, playing in a really key season for them. And again, this is what's interesting about this. A season before that, he'd been a lot more defensive in the Champions League for them. So this is the 21-22 season. This is the 20-21 season. More defensive. Arguably, Liverpool are looking at that and going, he's not actually that much older than there, although in obviously youth years, you want to see a little bit more progress. But again, this badge is where it's at. Who's he profiled similarly to? Well, let's look at one of his other Dutch compatriots, Frankie de Jong. And of course, the quote from Miguel Delaney, Gravenberch is an interesting one. I was told last summer that Ten Hag saw him as the only possible player who could do what Frankie de Jong could do for him when he desperately wanted him. Obviously, since Manchester United haven't gone in there with a bank-breaking offer, which is pretty fascinating. But the two comparisons he mainly gets are Paul Pogba and de Jong. Probably Paul Pogba, because he is a relatively tall, young black player within Europe. Maybe that's a little bit reductive of him, but at the same time, if you see a guy who's good with his feet, tall, has those rangy legs, could you avoid profiling him similar to one of the potentially great players in Europe? Potentially, yeah, because it comes across a little bit weird. But at the same time, Pogba's not a bad comparison. It's just, I think Pogba was maybe more slightly mobile. There was a bit more mobility to him. There's a bit more drive. But in terms of carries, there isn't really anyone similar to him. He's in the 99th percentile, like Verratti and Barella. And he's enabled to be a carrier because he has very good carrying skills. By the way, this is his profile with de Jong. De Jong clearly a much more progress player than him. But, I mean, by the way, do these diagrams really mean that much? Probably not really, but at least you get some rough numbers as to who he compares to. And is he at least in a ballpark with these? These are ballpark graphs, right? This isn't me going, look how similar he is to Frankie de Jong. Well, we're just getting Frankie de Jong all over again. You're getting someone who is progressive. You're getting someone who is, and by the way, attacking-wise and creation-wise, still much lower than Frankie de Jong. Defensively, very similar. All I'm saying is he's not a Frankie de Jong, but what in terms of height and ceiling height right now. But what he is a player who is able to enable that within a team. I think, again, a word I come back to is connective tissue. But of course, in that Ajax team where he was playing this, right? The player that played alongside him, just signed for West Ham, by the way, Edison Alvarez. That guy allowed him to unlock a lot more of his attacking ability. Liverpool are signing him to be more defensive, but he's not a screener, he's not a presser, or at least he hasn't been. He might have the ability to do that. Liverpool might see him as someone who can be coached up to that, especially coming through these two huge youth development centres. But again, I go back to, he's the connective tissue. Yes, he's made some of the most carries into the final third. Yes, he's made a lot of successful carries. There's something like 3.9 in his last season at Ajax. So there are a lot of good indicators as to what he is capable of. But Liverpool won't be asking him to carry the ball. They'll be asking him to receive the ball and then hook up with the other players around him pretty quickly and progress the play fast. They'll be asking him to be a big shadow on the field, and he's won a lot of his aerial defensive duels, more, by the way, than people like a Fabinho and people like that. But at the same time, they're going to be asking him to be a bit more defensive. They're going to be asking him to be a bit more of that rotation that Liverpool are currently trying to get into. And that's where I want to look at the shape of what Liverpool are really doing right now. Is this how Liverpool are going to set up? Or are we going to see something different in the very near future where Liverpool are a little bit more like this? He's a little bit deeper. McAllister probably could be deep alongside him, could be there, although he's really not a player that plays on the left like that because he is predominantly quite right-footed, though maybe because of the right-footed element, you could play over there, but he seems more comfortable over here. Or are we going to be looking at him dropping in, Trent moving forward, him dropping a little bit deeper? Is he capable of that? He's not an Endo. He's not a Decore. He's arguably not a Lavia, although there is a similarity to Lavia. He's arguably not a Caicedo. And obviously only Caicedo is really Caicedo. But I think where Liverpool are looking at right now is they really see a lot more value in the market elsewhere away from a Caicedo or a Lavia or someone like that. Although the fact they bid and then spent 2 days negotiating on Caicedo shows me they probably saw some value in that area. I'm just saying. Of course, playing like this still leaves Liverpool very open. And I think Gravenberch is adaptable enough that, obviously he can cover defensively for someone like Virgil van Dijk, but he's not that kind of guy that can drop into the back line and be like an Endo or say someone like that who's like, I feel comfortable here. Obviously, I'm not saying he's uncomfortable there, but you get my point. Like, how comfortable can a guy really be if he wants to be further upfield? What's interesting about it is, in showing that he went to Bayern, in showing that he wants now to go to Liverpool, and I don't think he's going to be he's not the first name on the team sheet, and in fact, there are people who may have been ahead of him at Liverpool. I think what he's showing is he's willing to learn, be adaptable. He's willing to find his position within a side. He's willing to be a little bit deeper and be a ball-dominant side like he was at Ajax when Ajax were having 70% of the possession and things like that. He's willing to hook up with some of these more exciting players like Diaz and Hakpo. And he's probably hearing from people like Hakpo how good it is at Liverpool, how much the adaptability of what he has done there is suiting him, how much he's enjoying his football. He should be enjoying his football. I don't know if he is. But you get what I'm saying here. Like, there are 3 ball carriers, and Trent cannot be that DM. He's just not that guy. And also, I don't know if he wants to be that guy. So why put him in that kind of a position, right? Szoboszlai has really been playing more like there. Like, what I'm really saying is I think Liverpool could go back to this kind of thing where it's more like, although not, a 4-2-3-1. But who's that 1? Because Hakpo's probably dropping a little bit deeper. Szoboszlai's probably coming a bit more like there. Could the 1 even be like a Salah if Liverpool don't sell him, which they probably won't do now? Could it be? It'd be pretty fascinating to work it out at this point, but that enables Trent to do so much more around here, which is arguably what he wants to do. It allows McAllister to be a bit more of that distributor and get forward when he needs to, be more like that. That could even be a 4-2. Could it be like 4? That can be that 3-2-2-3. arguably this looks a little bit more like at this point. But really, we're just saying numbers at this point. Do you get what I mean? But what I mean by that is, like, without Konate in the side, this doesn't work so well, I don't think, by the way. I think Trent needs to be a bit more defensive there without Konate in the side. But maybe you've got someone, maybe there's a young centre-back, but I feel like Liverpool aren't doing that right now. What I'm saying is, Gravenberch is a very adaptable player, but he isn't the solve-all for Liverpool. And what it kind of indicates is, maybe the problem that we think Liverpool have isn't the problem that they are trying to solve. The 6 that we think they need is probably actually Liverpool going, well, let's defend higher up. Let's be a little bit more dominant. Let's rely on the fact that because he's not the kind of player to be the screener or the presser there. He might be the kind of player to win the ball back a little bit higher up with a McAllister and a Szoboszlai, learn a little bit about getting a bit more ball time higher up the field, getting a bit more into that defensive action element, and winning it back higher up the field. You know, how would you have profiled Elliott when he first came into the Liverpool team? I'm not sure you'd have known. How would you have profiled Curtis Jones just a season ago? I'm not sure you'd have profiled him how you profile him now. How would you have profiled Szoboszlai? Well, differently to where he is currently playing for Liverpool, right? How would you have profiled Trent? Well, you'd have profiled him as a right wing back, but a lot of people are now saying he's more of a central midfielder, not central defensive midfielder. How would you have profiled Salah? Like, think of the adaptation that so many of these players have been through since they came into this Liverpool team. And I've covered this before, right, on this channel. Quite a lot, in fact. Konate just fulfills a lot of the boxes and ticks a lot of the boxes that you want a player for Liverpool to tick. Really good physically, has a great physical profile, has good footballing intelligence, is brave, has a really great personality. If Gravenberch is showing some of that, if he's showing some of this personality, if he's showing what he's willing to do for Liverpool and the adaptability, and Pep Lingers wants more of a Ajax-type profile, then yeah, Liverpool are signing a lot of players who profile very well in these areas. What I want alongside that is to see that coming to fruition at Liverpool, right? And you can kind of see it coming to fruition right now, right? Look at what Liverpool are trying to achieve in that midfield. Numbers dominance, winning the ball back quickly, adaptability, losing the ball a lot less. So, retaining the ball, getting out to someone like a Robertson or a Trent and enabling those guys to then distribute, run inside, run outside. Look at how adaptable this team is. If I was to then say to you, well, remember what Bob Paisley did with Liverpool. If you wanted to get the ball down and play it around, you could go toe-to-toe with some of the big teams in Europe. If you wanted to shoot it long, and when I say shoot it long, I mean pass it long, then there were players that could do that. Liverpool could do that. If you wanted to get the ball down and some of those wingers could get the ball through, then they could do all that. If you wanted to go wide, then Diaz and Salah are more than capable of that. If you wanted, very defensive, you can compress, and you've got players who are big, good at using their shadow and winning the ball back. It's not like Trent is a bad overall defensive player. In fact, when faced one-on-one, he isn't terrible. When he does come back and has the right shape for Liverpool, he's good at winning the ball back. He's determined, all these kind of things. McAllister, Szoboszlai, in deep defensive action areas are good at those kind of things. Gravenberch profiles very similarly to that, which is why maybe it feels confusing at this point as to what Liverpool want. But within that, don't get lost in the fact that the midfield shape is changing. What midfields are currently trying to achieve is different to where it has been before. So while we're busy comparing him to all these, he's not Fabinho, he's not Henderson, but Fabinho and Henderson were not Fabinho and Henderson when they came into the team. He's not Wijnaldum. Wijnaldum was not that player when he came into the team. No, he isn't any of these box of a 4. And yes, arguably the defensive stuff that is done in the side and has been done in the side, he would need to do more of. But again, the adaptability, the fact that he is very intense in this area of the pitch as well, the fact that he's also able to take the corners, the fact that he has this breadth of talent and he's able to carry so well, he's able to retain possession very well, shows that maybe there is something that we're seeing here at Liverpool that is changing. And with that change, they need new personnel. They need people they feel confident in. They need people that really physically match the profile they want. And they need to be coachable. I'll be interested to know what you guys think about Ryan Gravenberch. There's some interesting FB ref stats around all this stuff that I've tried to drop in. I didn't really want to go to just a graph and just go, oh, he's this, this, and this. I think it's weird that Bayern haven't used him more. I think it's weird that Bayern haven't maybe tried to fit him into the side in a different way. But I think it shows the pressure that was on that club last season, the drop away that they had wasn't really on him. We want other players within the team. And you can't be dropping players like Gravenberch in if you're Bayern at this point. And now it seems Tuchel doesn't want to do that either. So let's let our club do that. I'll be really fascinated to see. I think a lot of people see this kind of hidden underlying potential with Ryan, and I want to see what he's capable of. So I'll be interested to see what you guys think of this one. Do you think he comes to Liverpool? Who do you think he profiles similarly to? Who would you like to see him profile similarly to? And do you see him in that deep-lying, he's not a playmaker, but hook up connective tissue type area? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you again real soon. Right here on the channel, if you haven't already hit subscribe, please do it because it helps us quite a lot. We're on our way to 75k. I can smell it. But 74 is the one before that. Let's hope we hit that in the coming days. Really appreciate you guys. Let me know what you think of the podcast so far. Let me know what you think of everything else if you're sticking around on the channel. Much love. I'll see you in a little while.